We're still busy with information that changes.
Yes, I cannot tell exactly this one and this one and this one and this one unless you give me a memory stick, I put it in, and then compare with the original data.
Right, there you're not certain what information changes, not so, except for correct. The date on which the copying and paste was made.
That's correct.
Thank you. Now, let's go to information. By the way, I'm asking all these questions on the background, on the backdrop of the fact that you are an analyst, not so. I take it you savvy. This information is on the tip of your hand. Let's now go to the information that will not change as the information gets transferred to other gadgets as in form of copies.
Also on that, my lord, I'm not certain unless we compare.
And despite this so massive experience, 12 years it's like when a child starts school at grade 1 up to grade 12. That is almost 12 years, not so. Now, with that amount of experience, you're still not in a position to assist the court as to the dynamics that are involved in the industry that you are in. What information changes as copies are made, and what information does not change as copies are made.
So there you have it. In that cross-examination, Advocate Mnisi exposing Warrant Officer Mabaso's limited understanding of data integrity. So what we are seeing here and being exposed by Mabaso is like a significant gap in Warrant Officer Mabaso's expertise, despite his role as an analyst and his 12 years of experience in that field. So Mabaso obviously defended himself and said his focus is just to analyze what has been requested and not to generally check whether this changes or does not change. He simply asserted that his task was simply to copy and hand to the relevant people and then do the analysis. So to some extent, this is like a narrow scope of responsibility, where the role is more of like a data handler than a forensic expert. So personally, I think, this guy obviously must have that fundamental and detailed understanding of how digital evidence might be altered or affected during transfer, because this is very, very important, because you intend to be presenting evidence at the end of the day. And if you don't know how this picture that you're copying, which data is going to be lost and which data isn't going to be lost, then that probably means that the evidence that you're going to be presenting might not be robust to some extent. Because if you do know that maybe the date when the picture was taken gets lost when you transfer the data, it helps a lot, because when you do the transfer, then you write down the date, you write down the make and model of the phone that took the picture, then you do the data transfer. So that's very, very important, because it preserves the chain of custody of the evidence. So this exchange, it highlights a potential vulnerability in the state's case, because if their own expert cannot confidently and comprehensively explain the effects of data handling on digital evidence, the defense would then be forced to argue that the integrity of that evidence is compromised, creating reasonable doubt about its reliability. Because there is a certain point where Advocate Mnisi actually questioned Warrant Officer Mabaso which kind of a phone took that picture. And Mabaso couldn't explain, the phone that took that picture. So it creates this massive problem when you took the evidence, because when you got that evidence, it's some of the things that you should have been checking for, so that when you present his evidence, he can be sure of what he is presenting, because he is presenting evidence for digital pictures. And the defense was arguing that this picture has been altered. As you can see there, it's in selfie mode, it's sort of mirrored. And the defense is arguing that picture was taken by a Samsung AG something something. And Mabaso just didn't have answers for those questions. So it becomes problematic, if you are an expert and you did not do that thorough foundational building of collecting all the evidence, that gets altered when you transfer the data. So looking at his past testimony, Mabaso, he struggled, to articulate the precise source of how he received the information. He simply stated, that he got it from the downloader's office in a CD or a hard drive. So obviously, to someone who is not technical, when you just copy a picture, it's just a picture. It just comes as a picture. Nothing changes. But there is that metadata, that is accompanied by the photo. That is also very, very important. Because if you were to go, for example, to the properties of a photo, you see something like created on, like, maybe 2 September 2014 and then modified on 16 July 2014. So all of that data is very, very important. And after its importance too, the expert, the data analyst must be able to explain and understand what those terms mean. So we have Mabaso here who didn't do a thorough check on that data, and to some extent, by listening to his testimony, he might not understand what those terms like created or modified might even mean. So if you were to go further in terms of looking at data handling and stuff, you would find out, that the original image in itself, it must be preserved, it must be untouched. And like, for example, there must be a verification of file integrity hashing, before and after transfer. They must compute something like a cryptographic hash, and if the hash does not match, the file has been altered. So all of that data is very, very important. Not only that, when transferring the data, it should not convert, from one extension to another, like from JPEG to PNG, because any transformation, it must be documented and be justified, and it must be explained clearly as to what exactly happened. So that's the challenge that is there with Mabaso. And he most likely used that copy paste that is just there on Windows instead of tools like maybe FTK Imager to avoid metadata modification. But anyway, this is what is happening at the Senzo Meiwa trial. I'll catch you guys on the next one.